like to start with a quote from Richard Weber, who is an executive director from the state of Florida. To take a life when a life has been lost is revenge. To me, this quote means that if we were to take the life of someone who has murdered someone, we would be seeking revenge on that person. And this is the reason why I decided to do the topic of abolishing the death penalty. The death penalty is a government order that gives the state permission to execute someone for committing a crime such as murdering someone. This is a big topic because I feel like there's reasons on both sides on why it should be abolished and reasons why it shouldn't be abolished. But I was leaning more towards the side of it, reasons why it should be abolished. The reasons why I feel like it should be abolished is because it costs a lot of money to execute people, and the government is using our tax dollars to pay for that. And also, we could be putting to death an innocent person that really did not commit this crime. I was reading a couple articles, and it actually cost over $30 million just to execute someone. $30 million. Not only does it cost $30 million, but it also costs money for the lawyers, the trials, and the retrials as well. And the money that's paying for that is coming from our tax dollars. So our tax dollars are going towards the execution and all those items. And that just doesn't seem fair to me. I feel like our tax dollars could be going towards more important things rather than killing a human being, because that just doesn't seem humane to me. According to Kelly Simmons, a reporter from New York Times, the time between sentencing and execution was 15 years, and only 15% have been executed. So that means these people are sitting in prison for 15 years, awaiting to be put to death, and our tax dollars are paying for them to sit there and continue to sit there. So we're still paying for everything, and we're still paying for them to sit there. And only 15% of those people are being put to death. So that means 85% of those people are still sitting there, and we're still continuing to pay for them. And that doesn't just seem right to me, because we can be using that to pay for other things, more important things for us Americans. Something that supports that was from a quote from Kamala Harris, our vice president. She also opposes the death penalty because it is immoral, ineffective, and a misuse of our taxpayer dollars, that just supports what I just said on how the government could be using our tax dollars to be paying for more important things. It would save over $150 million a year if they went with life without parole rather than the death penalty. So if they went with life without parole, then we would get $150 million extra dollars to be spending on better things. So they should really do the life without parole rather than the death penalty. They could be using it to spend on things for education for kids, better education for them. The homeless really need help right now. And also could be using it for the better health benefits for us Americans. They could be using our tax dollars to pay for things that are actually going to benefit us rather than killing a person. Not only does it cost a lot to execute someone, you could be killing an innocent person as well. In the year of 2019, there were 3,000 people on death row, and 117 of those people were found innocent. Imagine executing an innocent person. I'm just going to let that sink in for you. There are some out there that have been executed when they really were innocent the entire time. And I would like to tell a story on a young man named Larry Griffin. Larry Griffin is an individual who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was driving past, and there was a drive-by shooting. And the cops were the first people to pull him over and not the actual killer. So they pulled him over and arrested him, and they charged him with the drive-by shooting, and he ended up getting the death sentence and was sentenced to death. So he sat in prison for 10 years awaiting to be put to death and still remain his innocence because he really did not commit this crime. So 10 years passed, and it was time for him to be executed, and they ended up executing him, which was very sad because it turned out 5 years later that they actually found the real killer who really did this drive-by shooting. And Larry has already been put to death, so his family lost their father, their husband, and their child because he was wrongfully convicted of a crime, and they cannot bring him back. So that does not just sit well with me. We shouldn't be putting people to death because we feel like they committed this crime, when in all reality they could have been innocent this whole time like Larry was. Not only are there people that are against the death penalty, there are actually a lot of people that are for it. Frank Schultz, a professor from Harvard, stated, capital murder may be morally required, not for retributive reasons, but rather to prevent the taking of innocent lives. To me, he feels like people should be put to death or should be locked up to keep them from killing more innocent people, which I feel like they should be locked up. So I agree with that a little bit, but I also believe that they should not be put to death. We shouldn't be putting human beings to death. I feel like God would not want us to be doing that. They should be sitting in prison and sitting there for the rest of their lives. I know people are afraid of them getting out and committing the same crime, but if they're giving a lengthy sentence or put in there for the rest of their lives, there's no chance of them getting out and hurting any more people. People also believe that it should not be abolished because if you take the life of another, yours should be taken too. That is just not humane to me. And I feel like that just makes us just as bad as the person that killed that person. If we're killing that person and putting them to death, then that just makes us look just as bad. I feel like families would want that person to sit in prison for the rest of their lives rather than killing them and giving them the easy way out. That just isn't right, and we shouldn't be doing what that person did to that person. That does not make us human in my eyes. Throughout this speech, I hope that you were able to take reasons why I feel like it should be abolished, but also there's opposing sides to it as well on why we should keep it. But I hope I was able to give you a more ground on why it should be abolished. And I would just like to end on the quote from Martin Luther King Jr. that really stuck out to me. Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoted to the stars.